Yeah. So this is on YouTube now, Venu. Is that how that's working?
Yeah, I'm setting it up.
Yeah.
Okay.
You guys are able to see the screen, right? I'm just sharing the layout.
Yeah.
All right.
So this is on YouTube now, Venu. Is that how that's working?
Yeah, I'm setting it up.
Yeah.
Okay.
You guys are able to see the screen. Okay, I'm hearing some feedback for some reason.
Yeah,
I was setting up YouTube, so I just.
Oh, okay. All right. Cool.
I hope it's happening live, or is there?
No, there is a 20-second between what we speak and what comes on YouTube.
Okay, but in terms of the conversation, it should be fine, right?
Yeah. But generally, all the questions actually appear on Zoom, so that's how people interact.
Yeah. Cool. So looks like it's going to be the four of us, yeah.
Yeah, Arvind is joining as well.
Now I hope there are some people to listen to the webinar.
Okay, sorry. yeah, of course.
Yeah. That would be good.
Yep. Is it still snowing in Regina right now?
Yeah,
Ricardo?
I think I can. I don't know if we have any snow left, as you guys can see.
Okay.
A little bit at the back, at this, maybe a little white at the back, maybe. I don't know.
Oh wow!
It kind of goes away. Right now, it's kind of snowing.
All right.
Right.
Oh, so you're at the office. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, right now is a tough period for us because it's really pretty gross. Like it'll snow and it'll melt and then it'll be gross for a while. So
I think Regina during this time, from my experience, sort of goes through, it gets cold and then gets really nice and then probably gets cold and then not so nice and then really, really cold, I guess.
Yeah, we've had a week and a half of not very nice and then next week's supposed to be nice. So we'll see how it goes.
Okay.
Cool.
Wonderful. All right. We got 8 minutes, so. Satish, is this a busy time for you guys? I mean, in terms of both business development and servicing?
Yeah. I think last month was very busy and we had like so many proposals and we signed up a couple of big names from Asia. And so that's going on. And we signed a partnership with Tech Mahindra Sports Tech. So that's going to be we're looking for a great partnership. They come with the brand name and cash, right? So they're trying to grow the sports tech as well. And but meanwhile, we are continuing our work here in the US and North America primarily. So that's something that we are more focused now.
Right.
We signed a couple of smaller clients in ice hockey, tier 2 ice hockey in the US. So we're...
see, in Canada, it's not called ice hockey; it's just called hockey. So that
correct.
So in India, it's called hockey and ice hockey.
Here it's called ice hockey in India.
here it's called hockey and field hockey.
Yeah, correct. Field hockey. That's right.
Right. It's like
I think similar to football, right? Football here is the American version, whereas in India it's a soccer version. Yeah.
Everywhere else, it's
Oh yeah, yeah. It's the soccer version. Yeah, correct.
it's just intuitive because you play it with the foot, and the thing that you play when looks like a ball. So I mean,
Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
so,
Correct. Yeah.
so that's a little different. But so Satish, do you have a team in Asia to service all of these guys, and how
Yeah. So we have an office in India. We
Okay.
have 30 people there working. So the engineering team and client servicing team there. And
Right.
predominantly the bigger business development and all it happens here in the US. And like we are not completely focused on Asia, but it's just kind of like we pick along if
Yeah.
some client come along, right? I think
Yeah.
the biggest challenge is working with teams and working with visionary leaders who want something like this, right? Then it is an easy work for us, right? If somebody is not at all interested but they're forced upon something to do and they're not prepared, then it becomes a struggle.
Yeah. And I can chat with you and offline about a lot of people look at the offshoring as a great opportunity, but it has to come with good servicing, right? And good delivery on time. And that's where offshoring hit a snag a few years back, right? I mean, one was infrastructure. So I don't know whether Satish, you have infrastructure in Bangalore or Hyderabad and these places, but
we have in Chennai. But again,
Chennai.
for us, it's a being a product company, SaaS company, right? So predominantly, it doesn't matter, right? So the account management happens for the clients depending on the geography wherever they are. So it's purely everything delivered from the cloud and everything. So it doesn't have a big impact. So more R&D and engineering on product side happens in India, but majority of our ideas and things are driven from the US.
Yeah. So Ricardo, have you? I mean, do you work with any offshoring clients, companies, or companies that have Satish's model?
You know what we did? That was one of our initial forays into kind of data and analytics. We worked with a company from the UK called Green4, what did our rewards program. They actually had a lot of business in Europe and Asia and Africa, quite big name players like in the EPL and whatnot, big in rugby as well.
Yeah.
They came over to North America, set up a sales team, got up a whole bunch of NFL teams and started to make noise. And you're right, the service model was time zones, and we'd wait. Meetings had to be different times, and the support wasn't there, and it crumbled. They lost all their business, and then a new entrant came in from Sweden, of all places. They bought up a startup, and then it was then in North America, and they served properly, right? So that's a big issue. If your customers if they feel like you're in a different time zone, it's a big deal.
Yeah, that's true. Let me go live then. I guess it's 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Let me open up. So,
all right.
So Venu, what you want us to do is do our quick intros and then sort of.
That's right. Yeah. So I'll just go through this slideware first, and yep, we are
live and broadcasting.
All right.
Just a quick question. In terms of the questions, are you guys going to say the name of who you want to talk to, or are we just going by the? Okay, great.
I'll be announcing. Yeah.
Okay.
And we stay on mute till when someone else is speaking, right? I mean, that's probably the best thing.
Yeah, I mean, up to you. If there's no background noise, it's fine. Yeah. So we'll just wait for a couple of more minutes, guys, for people to join in. And we have a chat window open. In the meantime, it would be great for the participants to kind of just do a very quick intro of who you are, where you're joining from, just to know, what kind of a crowd we have today. All right, we have a few people joining in. Hello, Juan. Hello, Brett. Hello, Akhil. Nice to have you. Just maybe one more minute and we'll start off. We'll be also running a few polls in the meantime. Would be great if you could just click on your thoughts for the polls. All right, I think we could probably start off now. So good morning, everybody. My name is Venu. I'm the moderator for this webinar, and thank you for joining in for this panel discussion regarding transforming digital fan experience in sports through analytics. We're really pleased to have a very good panel on board, and we have a couple of really experienced personnel from the industry, and we have our team with Fanisco. So what I'll do is, before we start off, just quickly summarize a few ground rules and a few housekeeping things for the webinar. So everybody else is on mute. The panelists would be speaking. We have a set of questions that we will ask the panelists, and they would be answering them live. And what we can also do is accommodate a few audience questions. We have a Q&A panel here on Zoom. So it would be great if you have any questions, you can post it there, and we will try our best to answer them live. If not, we will probably write it down on the Q&A panel or email it to you later if we are running short on time. And what we'll do is we'll start off with a few introductions first. So I'll just quickly go on to Indivar Kushari. So Indy, thank you for joining us. He is the founder and CEO of Arc Strategy, which is an insights and strategy consulting firm. based out of Toronto in Canada. And Indy was also formerly with the Canadian Football League as a chief data officer and has a rich experience in sports, in research, and with data as well. So thank you, Indy, for joining us. Welcome on board.
Thank you for having me, Francisco.
All right, cool. So quickly going on to the next, we have Ricardo. Ricardo is currently with the Saskatchewan Roughriders. He is the Director of IT and Business Intelligence, and he has a rich, he has rich experience in the data and analytics part of sport, as well as on the engineering side. And as you can see, that he has graduated from the University of Regina. He's joining us from Regina. So welcome, Ricardo.
Thank you, Venu and Francisco team.
All right, so quickly moving on to the Fanisco team, we have Satish, who is the co-founder and CEO of Fanisco. So welcome, Satish, on board.
Thanks, Venu. Looking forward for an exciting discussion for this webinar.
Perfect, and we have Arvind, who is the co-founder and the Chief of Business Development. So welcome, Arvind.
Thanks, Venu. Excited for this fifth webinar series. Great to have Indy and Ricardo on board as well. Looking forward to a great discussion.
All right, so let's get to the business end of this, which is the panel discussion. I'll just stop sharing my screen so that you can see all the speakers. All right, so I'll just begin with our Q&A session. And the first one is directed towards Indy and Ricardo. I'll start with Indy first. So the first question is a little broad. How can fan behavioral data enhance sports fans' experience?
It's a great question, Venu. I mean, in terms of when you think about fan behavior data, I mean, at the end of the day, the world is moving towards customization. What I value as important may not be what Ricardo values as important, right? So if I have something that is of value to me, I am willing to pay money for, and Ricardo may not think highly of that. I come from a place in India where tea is very important. So the quality of tea is very important for me, right? Whereas, I'm not so fussy about coffee. Ricardo may not be like that. I don't know that about Ricardo, but understanding that at a fan level is important to sort of increase perceived value for customers. So, and that translates into many, many different things. It is not about people pay money for what they see as perceived value, right?
Correct.
So earlier, and I talk about a time when I joined Coca-Cola, it's about 12 years back, and we got into the idea of customization. Digital was still growing at that point of time, but you had the fact that you can't win market share at the cost of profitability, right? Absolutely. And I bring that connection to that is because you can't sort of just keep discounting, always fearing what Pepsi is going to do tomorrow, right? So you have to find value in what customers find value, and different customers find value in different things. And that is executed in sports because through understanding of fans, through understanding of segmentation, you find out what a person wants and give something that is of value to someone. For example, in sports, we did it at the CFL. We started doing it at the CFL, but I've done previously with other organizations as well. You go and find out if this person is coming really for the on-field experience, or is that person coming for just an experience to be with friends, right? Someone values a photograph, a picture with the quarterback. Someone values an extra hot dog, right? So finding that and having packed, having that customization is important, and that's where understanding the fan and fan analytics comes in play.
Absolutely agree, indeed. Thanks for sharing that. Interesting example about Pepsi and Coca-Cola. So that's something really worth pondering about. Ricardo, what's your thought on this? Sorry, Ricardo, probably you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Yeah. No just echoing Indy's train of thought again. He's right on the money. So how we look at it in terms of execution mode at the team level, that behavioral data is to increase relevance and that personalized communications, just similar to what Indy was talking about in terms of what one fan values more than the other. And it's right, like a generic message. This is the modernization of advertising and engagement. You know, if you go out to someone with a generic message about, hey, come to the game, but if I know who that favorite, you know, the person's favorite player is, and you send out a particular message that has that particular player in it, and it says, come to the game. In our case, you see that connection, they have more buy-in and it resonates. So this is not something new. Like obviously if we look at other industries, think of like Netflix and Amazon, they really became powerful because they understood their customers through data and analytics. And that's how they've been able to create their empires. And we're just learning from that and taking that to you know, our processes, marketing and advertising.
Interesting. I mean, yeah, absolutely. You know, you kind of hit the nail on the head when you spoke about Netflix and Amazon. You know, that's where they see the behavioral insights of each viewer in terms of what they like, what they don't like, which is the product or the, you know, specific show that they're spending most time on. And that can be completely taken to the sports world as well in terms of, you know, what is the segment of the game which the fan is more interested in, or who's their favorite player. And it's not rocket science to understand that, right? Yeah. Interesting, guys. Thank you for sharing that. I'll quickly move on to our next question. And so this is directed towards Arvind and Satish. So Arvind, I'll come to you first. How can data be used to enhance the value or ROI that sponsors get for their investment with the sports organizations?
Sure thing. Yeah, I'll probably like talk from a sports organization standpoint, because as we all know, right, when a brand invests in a sports organization, they also have a separate marketing budget, right, that they utilize, and they do all their campaigns and promotions and whatnot. But purely looking at it from a sports organization standpoint, you absolutely need to understand the brand reach, right? You absolutely need to understand the engagement that you're going to provide, right? And also like the brand affinity, brand awareness, and finally brand equity, right? All these parameters are very important to capture from a data standpoint, right? So that now you can go back to your sponsor organizations and talk to them about, hey, we are capturing all these, right? There is data that we can analyze more, right, and provide more and more stories and information to you, right? Hey, now can we have the conversation around the monetization revenue perspective, right? At the end of the day, data will help not only to identify the fan following, right, from the sports organization standpoint, but also trying to put the brands, right, directly with the consumers, right, with the fans, and provide that inherent ROI. With digital, you get that immediate feedback, right? If you're looking at the traditional mediums, then you kind of like fall into the black hole of, hey, am I like providing quantifiable metrics, right? And thereby, am I giving you the maximum ROI? Because when a sponsor invests in a sports organization, they are at least looking at 2 times the ROI that they're looking for from their investment. So if I put $1, I'm expecting at least $2, right? If the sports organizations are giving more than $2, then they're obviously doing their job extremely well, right? So some of the important metrics that needs to be captured, right, from a data perspective, will be around the sponsor brand's awareness, the reach that the sports organizations can give it to them, right, and how can we at the end of the day, right, improve the brand equity. So data plays a very prominent role in making sure that the sports organizations can add to the revenues that they bring, right, outside of your traditional the gate revenue or the merchandise, right, or other revenues that are the primary business models from an organization standpoint.
Agree, and that's kind of even more relevant now in 2020, right? With zero fans in the stadium, right? So digital is the only medium to capture that data. And, gone are the days of logo slapping on the ground, where, the only thing you could do is just get people, like you said, the gate revenues and stuff, and, expect people to look at the logo, but it's much more than that in 2020.
Absolutely.
Great. Satish, your thoughts on this, please.
Yeah, I mean, to add to Arvind's point, right, I think the touch points are important, right? From a digital standpoint, yeah, how do you collect the data, right? So creating that engaging elements in the digital is very critical to create those touch points, which in turn give and understand more about the fans from the data they offer. And that's one thing. I mean, like everybody struggles except for the Facebooks and Instagrams, right, who have kind of mastered that. And like from how do you keep them engaged, right? I mean, everybody's engaged on Facebook and Instagram, but how do you engage fans on your own platform if you have a mobile app or if you have social channels and all those things, right? So creating that engaging touch points is critical, and then deriving metrics from that, right? How many times fans open, what do they like, what do they not like. And so that's good thing with digital, right? Let's say that if I'm a fan and there is a big billboard in the stadium that they put, I don't like it, or majority of the fans don't like it. It's a big investment to bring it down for the sport, and then put another one. But digital, it is very easy to experiment, beta test what you want to offer, and from content angles or gamification or augmented reality. So all those create interesting touch points. And today's fans are very, what do you call, the modern fans are very, they want something special, as Indy said, customized or personalized to them. Like if you're going to keep repeating the same stuff, it's not going to work. So all these things is what adds to the data that you collect. And then what you do with the data is completely the other bigger puzzle to solve. In the end, using data wisely, it helps to understand the fans better. At the same time, strategize well to showcase to the sponsors that, hey, our fans, as a sports organization, our fans are engaged. This is our demographic, and what do you want to do with them, right? So, and then personalized messaging, targeting. You're not selling the data, but it's more kind of giving a better return for the sponsors, and that increases the monetization capabilities.
Agree, fair point. And I think in terms of the real estate available on the digital platform, it's like, it's humongous. You can customize that as per each sponsor or as per each campaign as well, right? So you need not go with one big sponsor only, right? So that becomes another selling point for the sponsors as well. Interesting, guys. Yeah. So let's move on. So the next question is directed to Indy. Consumer analytics has found enormous success in several sectors like retail, healthcare, real estate, but it has yet to become a mainstream in the sports industry. Why is it so?
So it's a great question, and it actually, in my mind, and I've been associated with hockey and MLB to some extent because of Rogers and its partnership with the Blue Jays, or ownership of the Blue Jays, I should say, and then the CFL. And there is a common thread that I have seen, but I've seen it change over the last 7 or 8 years that I've been associated with sports, and that is, it was sports for a long period of time believed that maybe it's to do with the old setting that you have to work and compete on field, and if you compete on field and you have Babe Ruth, or you have the next star, then everything else will happen automatically, right? You're going to make money, and and people are going to come, and they're going to have hot dogs and stuff. But that necessarily isn't true, and that is coming out because a lot of things let's be honest, a lot of these owners who own are passionate about sports and passionate about that, and so there is an emotional connection beyond just the revenue that has been in the past driving force behind ownership as such. What's changing though is that the sports industry is now becoming more and more of a business, and as it becomes a business, people are reacting to it just like the way people react to businesses, right? There's more requirement of data. There is more requirement for data-driven decisions coming out of that, and that is changing because you realize that the only thing to success is not just to win the Stanley Cup, right? In hockey, you've got to do different things. I was listening to a 49ers podcast recently, and he said, you know what? You can make a lot of money. You have to be competitive because no one likes to party next to a garbage dump. But if you're competitive and you do smart things, around managing your data and providing a great fan experience, as Ricardo and the riders have done, you can be that. And so as there's more focus on P&L and profitability of the day-to-day business, of franchise value, and those are getting measured. Sports has been behind and catching up, but I'm pretty confident it's going to catch up pretty soon, which is good news for people like us in the industry.
Interesting. Yep, absolutely well said. Great. Okay, moving on. Arvind, I have a question for you. Player performance analytics has been used by sports for several years, but sports organizations have not embraced gamification or augmented reality and other front-end activations, based on data for engaging fans directly. So is it, cost and lack of understanding or preventing a widespread use of this digital fan engagement analytics amongst the sports organizations?
Yeah, great question, Venu. Again, we cannot deny the fact that player performance tracking is important, right? And it's one of the top priorities because whatever happens on the field, right? The success will basically translate into the sponsorship, right? The revenue that the teams or the organizations will bring in, right? And also like it puts the team, say, on a global footprint, right? They get that global brand awareness as is synonymous with any EPL teams or any NFL teams, right? Who have been successful, right, for a considerable time. So that is one of the top priorities for sports organizations for a number of years now, right? But we cannot discount the fact that purely from the digital technology standpoint, whether it's gamification or augmented reality, right, or any emerging tech that can be utilized, say, within the sports spectrum, right, it's gaining traction and momentum as we speak, right? Especially with the current trends. What is happening around us right now, right? It's becoming even more important for the sports organizations to take note of it, right, and create a strategy around it and make that implementation, right? So in the past, yes, there are like several factors why that did not gain steam, right? Awareness is one, right? Again, from a sports owner perspective, right? That's one of my top. That's not one of my top business models, right? So I'm purely focused on how to run, right, a team or a club or a league, right? And my focus is around bringing fans to the stadium, right? Get the gate revenues, right? Make sure the players are well equipped, maintained, right? And they perform, right, to their best, right, on field, and so on and so forth. It also like comes down to cost, right? Back in 2016, when we were talking to several sports organizations, right, cost was one of a major hurdle for us, right? One side of the things, even though awareness was not there, was lacking, but they were also like looking at, it's going to cost me X dollars, so what's the sort of ROI that I'll be getting, right? So it was not one of their top budgeting item tool, right, for them to like embrace technologies, right, and start executing on it. So so it was a combination of this is not our primary focus, right? Two, there's not a lot of awareness around these, right, and not a lot of success stories too. because a lot of the teams in the leagues, right? If they see somebody else doing this and that becoming a success, then everybody will follow suit, right? So that was not happening, right? That was not catching a fire. So all of those things contribute in the past, but what we're seeing now, that is slowly changing, and now a lot of the sports organizations are having conversations with us, with several sports tech companies that we've talked to, right? So there is an urgency that we see, right, where the organizations will now, they want to make this a priority, right? Digital transformation is happening, right, as we speak, and a lot of the innovators, right, and the folks who want to like try out new things, they are now like executing on it. They are putting together a team, a strategy around it, right, and want to execute on it. So we are going to see that trend happening even post COVID, right? This is not going to stop or abruptly end, right? But this will become the way forward for any sports organization globally.
Agree. And as they say, necessity is the mother of all inventions. So I think that's what we are seeing in 2020 with all the teams adopting digital as a strategy going forward. So yeah, it's interesting, although it's a forced change, but it's also interesting to see, how teams are kind of using this and differentiating their strategy, amongst their peers as well. Because, it's easy to say go digital, but what do you do differently than the other teams is also important in going digital. All right. So next question is for Ricardo, who's been waiting patiently. So Ricardo, this is for you. How do sports organizations see digital data? Is it a mere nice to have, or or is it something that does not get utilized effectively? In your experience of dealing with the Rough Riders, if you could throw some light.
That's a really good question, Benny. And I really want to take Arvind's train thought, because it's really relevant around this. No doubt that all teams or most sport leagues are capturing data, but that really, where you kind of ask the question is like, is this a nice to have or something that everybody's doing it because everybody's doing it, or is it effective? And to Arvind's point, a strategy alignment or a strategy has to be there for this. You can't collect data just to collect data. And this is where, even like as a club, in terms of the data maturity scale, you start somewhere, and then you're not going to hit a home run right away. You're not going to be actioning that data immediately. So strategy will give you that roadmap to get to a point where you're executing on the data and it provides value to the organization. And that strategy also has to align to your business strategy. So in our case, how we look at data, we have two kind of avenues. Number one is monetizing the data. So as Arvind or Satish mentioned, how can we leverage this data to go to partnerships and sponsorships to create really value added, to create that reach? We can't, in our situation at our club, we're starting to run out of assets to sell in a stadium. We can't slap on another logo on the turf. We can't sell another billboard. We just don't have any more. So how do we create these new revenue streams? And digital is one of those avenues, like you mentioned. There's a lot of potential there. Obviously not just having an activation, but obviously how to learn from that activation, make it more valuable, relevant, give value back to that partner. That's really important. Is if you have this strategy alignment to say, like, we're going to go out and have a digital activation. Let's say, for example, an augmented reality. It's going to be cool. Great. Okay. Well, now you know something about that particular fan, and how can you leverage that going forward? That fan is no longer just interested in watching your sport game, but they also want to interact with you in a different method. Another way that we utilize data, or at least create the strategies, is having a 360-degree view of our fan. So, sports organizations collect a lot of data, selling tickets, what events they attend, scanning, emails, social, mobile, a lot of data, right? So for us, part of our strategy is, again, going back to the something I talked about, is relevance. So when we create our personas or create the segments, we just want to make sure that we're hitting the right segments with the right message, and having a strategy around that is really important. Otherwise, like you said, it's just going to be a merely nice to have, and it's going to be wasted resources. And and sports teams, we don't have actually a lot of money to spend. A lot of money goes into the sport team itself, not necessarily running the business. So we try to run lean and mean, and that's really where that comes across.
Well said, and I completely agree, right? The primary business model is the sport itself, right? So these are the things that go in the background, but again, how do we utilize them to the best of the advantage for the teams itself? Lovely. So guys, interestingly, we have a couple of audience questions. The first one is an anonymous attendee question. Okay, probably Satish, you could take this one, but it's open to the panel as well if you want to join in. With increased scrutiny for collecting data and strict privacy laws, what is the process to capture data with permission from potential customers and growth market segments?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I was expecting somebody's going to ask that, right? So I come from a cybersecurity background, and also before starting Fanesco, and also cybersecurity, data security is very close to my heart, and it's very important that you don't just kind of take data without the permission. At the same time,
Yep.
What permissions the fans give, right? And this was, I mean, like in the initial time when we were kind of talking with some of those teams and others, right? So they were expecting us to kind of give the data to them, right?
Yep.
Why can't we get the data and give it to them, right? Then we had to explain them, educate them that, hey,
Yep.
it's very interesting that you have the data, you can get the touch points, but remember that there is this permission and security thing and all, right? So
Yep.
opting, I mean, like even the social media networks and everybody, right? You have to opt in. You have to opt in, and before you get as a fan, you have to opt in and give the data permission for you to do it. Like a simple example is, 1 second. No, you should not do that.
We have an additional panelist, I think.
One important element is when you log in, right, you can integrate Google login or Facebook login, right? And these social networking and authentication providers are also becoming strict on what data you can offer and what data you can extract from the user. And the basic information, for example, signing in with Apple allows the user to hide the email that they provide. So there are ways in which like the authentication providers are matured in giving what data that the implementers can take from the fans, and at the same time, as a sports organizations, having the responsibility on educating the fans on you are opting in for a prize that is sponsored by Pepsi or Coke or somebody, right, a sponsor, and that's why we need your email, right? So educating that is much more relevant, especially when you talk about the data, rather than just kind of like, I for example, I get some emails, I don't even know how I didn't even subscribe for that. Why am I getting that email, right? So you don't want to leave a bad taste in your fans. So I call it being a responsible data, like as a sports organization, being responsible about your fans' data, and also having the right security measures in preventing the data getting hacked and data not being sold, and all these things are very important for sports organizations whenever they look at the data.
Correct. Agree. Yeah, I think. Sorry, Indy, you had something to say?
No, I didn't really, but I agree with everything that Satish sort of said. It is about relationship with your fans. It's about the long-term relationship with the fans. It's not about it's not about the short term at all. And therefore, it is important for sports organizations as well as the leagues to be right there and not spoil a relationship. Right.
Correct. Agree. Cool. So on the same note, we have another question for both Indy and Ricardo. Maybe Indy, you could go at it first, since you have been there and done that, both of you, from a sports organization standpoint. How easy or difficult was it for you to convince your team management about the benefits of implementing, an analytics program which focuses on fan behavioral data and sponsor insights? And what were some of the challenges you faced in terms of having this change management thing going?
Right. I think I'll start with saying that change management is always very interesting, and having been exposed to senior thinking on this, and I'll say this facetiously, is everyone wants change as long as they themselves don't have to change. That's an ongoing battle to change anything, and in business way before digital happened, or whether in sports.
Yep.
The thing is, as the data guy, I would say that I've always worked in an environment where there was an interest in understanding data. Otherwise, my position wouldn't have happened, and I wouldn't be in the room to have that conversation. However, I wouldn't say it hasn't been, and this I'm talking about pre-COVID, right? It wasn't very hard to try something as long as it was within budget, and there was a stronger path to ROI, or a way to do that. Now, the bigger role for a data leader, like Ricardo finds himself in, or I was in the past, is the ability to communicate and clearly connect the data with the data with the business. And so my advice or suggestion to agency partners such as Finisco and others who may be in is, be responsible about ROI, be responsible about how it's measured, be responsible about experimenting, and also sort of show cases of implementation, concisely and cogently, so that others, so that Ricardo can take it forward in the organization. So, so again, it's always a challenge, but it's all about communication and the drawing out of risk. So, Ricardo.
Thanks, Sunny. It feels like you always take my answer right before I get to it, but at a team level, just give you a little bit of history. So I've been with the club for 6 years, and initially I was brought in for the data side. So that question around convincing the management team, I think the real crux of it is not necessarily convincing the team that data needs to be collected, but what's the value? That I had a situation where, after several years of building up our data infrastructure, our processes, our governance, and going up again that data maturity life cycle, one of our executives asked me, so what is this, like, fancy chart, or is this report, like we could do this with Excel or something along those lines? And that can come from, like Andy said, communications, and also alignment with the strategy, with business, and so on. And actually, for me, when that question was asked, so what's the value? Why are we doing this? Why are you spending money, where we could be putting it somewhere else? And it is in communication, both showing what the investment can do. One of the big wins that we had at the club is we invested a significant amount of money and time and resources to really understand our fans, and not just through behavioral data. So we conducted a very comprehensive fan study where we created personas, but we didn't just do like, who attended games, jerseys, kits, whatever. We actually asked them questions around why they love the team, why they love the sport, why they come to the game, but more at a social, emotional level, sociographic level. And that's paid off dividends, because now we all have internally the same vocabulary when we talk about our segments. We know when we create a marketing campaign who we're targeting. And it just becomes easy, and it's top down in terms of the change management. How it was sold and communicated was really important, because now from retail and ticketing and marketing and everybody in the business lines knows when we say this segment or this persona, we all know why they come and what they're looking for. It's very easy, and that's where that question, so what? Well, now I can answer, well, so what? Now we know how to communicate with our customers and really hit home that message. And that's when you very easily start talking about, okay, now let's go back and compare our ROI from our previous marketing campaigns to now, and we can show the so what means more dollars.
Agreed.
Bottom line.
Yeah, absolutely. You nailed it. Yeah. I mean, the example that you shared was, I mean, exactly apt for the question that was given to you, right? In terms of understanding each fan separately and, understanding their behaviors, their likes, their dislikes, and how do we target them specifically for each campaign. Perfect. Yeah, so there are a couple of other questions as well from the audience. I'll go with this one first. So because, again, Indy and Ricardo, this is quite relevant in your context. How important is the stadium's arena or infrastructure when it comes to data recollection? So this is interesting. I mean,
I'll pass it to Ricardo so that he doesn't claim I steal his answers.
All right.
I'll say this. The purpose of what data collection you're doing will really drive the infrastructure. So the answer can be absolutely if you're trying to create a lot of data or metrics and interactions and things at the venue. And really, I know, like, from attending a lot of conferences and talking to my peers in the North American market, whether it be NFL, NBA, NCAA, a lot of money is being invested into infrastructure at the stadiums. One of the clearest examples, I remember going to Levi Stadium when it initially launched, and it was phenomenal. The amount of data and infrastructure that they were collecting and they were actioning on it. They had a strategy and a purpose to that. And, you also go to some of the stadiums that seat 70, 80, 100,000 in NCAA, and they don't have infrastructure. They have barely any Wi-Fi. And the answer is, what would be the purpose of your reason for collecting it, and how are you going to action of it? Because if you don't have an actual strategy around actioning on that data, then the answer is no, you don't need incredible infrastructure at the stadium, because you know what? You may already have enough coverage in your other digital channels, whether it be mobile, would be covered by whatever traditional LTE or 3G or 5G infrastructure. As opposed to, you don't need the next level of Wi-Fi or really great Wi-Fi reach at the stadium. It's not necessarily going to be the reason why your data strategy fails or succeeds. It's one of the factors, is what I would say.
Correct. Agreed. Indy?
No, I think we're in sync, Ricardo. I mean, in terms of, again, it isn't, I mean, we are, as I mentioned earlier, we sell going to the game not as just come watch so and so play, because but it is for the entire experience, right? I would say, and the Rough Riders have seen, having a good stadium is an important factor, right? Like it is, but it is what I would call a hygiene factor to have a decent stadium, because there are certain expectations which keep developing with experience, right? If you've been to Mosaic Field as such, it creates a certain expectation. Like you expect, you expect Wi-Fi, or you expect a certain level of seat, etc. So if you're selling the experience, you can't do that bereft of the stadium, because the number of washrooms that people have, number of hot dog stands that they have. So it is part of that, and we have to remember that having a good fan experience today is not just about the fan itself, and keeping the fan happy and they come back. Remember that every fan today, because of social media, is a marketer for your brand. Is an unpaid marketer, which is an exciting and dangerous concept at the same time, because if if a person doesn't have a good experience, they're not shy to tell you they're not, or tell their friends that they had a bad experience, right? And so I think the stadium, I think this is what Ricardo mentioned, is part of it. It's not, if you have a stadium and it doesn't solve all your problems, right? You still have to do a lot with it. You're going to collect a lot of data, but you need to have smart people like Ricardo to sort of figure out what to do and how to turn that data into money.
Agree, solely agree. I think social media has given a completely new meaning to freedom of expression. So the fans can complain, they can praise, they can do whatever they want on social media. So yeah, you got to be spot on as a team or as a league or as a service provider to be, really good with your service and consistent with your service. Right. All right. Another interesting question from the audience by Shashank. Given that fan engagement comes in the long tail on monetization for sports businesses, are there any unique pricing models required to scale digital innovations? I'll open it up to the panel, but we can start off with maybe Arvind and Satish, since it talks about pricing models.
Yeah, I think, one of general misconception, right, I think is that anything digital has to be expensive, right? But we are living in an age where some of the things of the cost has come down, really to a level where teams can experiment with it for a season, or it can be scaled up, and depending on the returns they get and all, right? So traditionally, and also remember, like in case of a stadium, whether you have 5 people coming into the stadium or 500,000 people, the expense or the cost of putting up a banner or a billboard is the same, right? In digital, that's where we differ, where the pricings are always going to be on the monthly active users, or those metrics, daily active users, right? So how many active users actually participated in this particular digital activation is how the pricing model differentiates, right? So for when the sports organizations works with the product company, and the pricing model is always going to be on the active user metric. So let's say that the majority of them, that the cost is going to be on the digital infrastructure. So in this case, let's say that in case of Rough Riders, right, so their monthly active users is going to be like, say, 50,000, right? So they're going to only pay for the 50,000, not for 1 million active users, which is a good problem to have when that monthly active users increases to 1 million. But that gives them a flexibility to see that, hey, that I'm able to keep so many users engaged, and then people, Ricardo, can take it to the management and say that, hey, having 1 million active users is a good problem to have, and the cost associated is going to be significantly lesser when compared to the returns we get. So every digital activation has that capability in digital, unlike in the traditional world. So cost is always as much. The misconception is it's going to be expensive. No, it's not.
Agree. So, Arvind, before coming to, there's another question which is on similar lines, and I just thought I can address that by Akhil. So he's also asking about implementation of cost for, return to work for AR facilities as of today. How big a challenge is it?
I'll probably make it generic, right?
Sure.
Yeah. So, as Satish already pointed out, a few years back, yes, cost was one of the major factors, right? Because if you look at it, some of the technologies that we are seeing now, right, back then, say 3 years, 5 years back, were not matured enough, right? So obviously, there will be like a huge effect, right, from a cost perspective, but that has come down drastically, right? The question that we should be asking is, hey, as a sports organization, right? Do I have the vision, right, to go through the process, right? That's the most important thing. Do we have the people, right, to execute on that vision, right? Do I have the strategy, right, to make these things happen? Because cost is one of the factors, but it is not the driving factor in today's world, right? There are like several providers that a team can basically go with, right, at the end of the day. So it should come down to, hey, do I have the vision? Do I have the strategy? Do I have the people to execute on it? Right. That's the most important factor that I see, right? And then like cost and everything else, right, becomes just another topic for discussion and agreeing upon. The most important thing, right, when we venture into these kind of initiatives, you got to try a few things. There will be success stories. There will be some failures. But failures or stepping stone, right, from the learning process standpoint. So you learn from it, right? You tweak certain things around, you move certain things around, and then you come up with a better version, a different version, right? And see how that works for you. The cost for doing that is not humongous when you compare that against the traditional methodologies, right? With digital, these things are extremely possible. The timelines are shortened, right? It doesn't take a lot of time to execute on these kind of simple digital activations or strategies, right? The cost is very limited from that perspective as well. So at the end of the day, right, it's all about the right vision, right strategy, right, and the right team to execute on those. Cost is not the main factor here. It's one of the factors, and it's not one of the top factors as well from my perspective.
Agreed. Yep. And I think it's interesting when you and Satish mentioned about, it's no longer a one-stop shop thing that you need to do as a, big bang solution. You can try smaller things and, compartmentalize it and, then kind of put the pieces together. So that's what digital allows you. You need not do, everything at once, in fact, look at smaller wins and then kind of look at the bigger picture. Interesting. Okay. So we have one more question from the audience. So good on the audience for keeping the questions bandwagon going. So by Brett, how are your organizations measuring ROI or brand lift metrics? Are there attribution partners you would recommend? So probably I'll push it to both Indy and Ricardo once again, since you are from the brand, from the team side.
Yeah.
Indy, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. There are, at the end of the day, we have to be very responsible towards other sponsors and partners in terms of saying, okay, you're doing this engagement, and what does it do? And our role in organizations like teams and leagues is to make sure that measurement is responsible, right? So we've deployed. I mean, you can do some basic metrics. Right? So for example, when the engagement is digital, you're able to sort of track engagement. You can track engagement metrics by different cohorts, right? You can sort of usually demographic cohorts, regional cohorts, etc., to see what was the level of engagement digitally for that, which provides a certain level of a certain level of lift, and therefore that's a report that goes back to the sponsor. What's important though is that you set benchmarks and expectations. That is very important, because the extent of the lift should be proportional to the extent of the spend or the engagement, right? So that's very important to do. There are other things that we've done. I did a lot with hockey, and here in Canada, and also implemented at the CFL for league level, and let Ricardo talk about what they're doing. Is actually surveying fans or attendees, and doing it's kind of like in not to get too much into the detail, but into A/B testing methodology to say, did the engagement with did a certain engagement with the league or the team cause an incremental and lift that you would not have seen, and was that commensurate with the spend that you had? Right. Correct. So there is a certain amount of science, and I see the question. I mean, there are lots of different ways that you can do. A lot of consumer insight firms have extensions in different markets, Brett, about doing sponsorship lift studies. The specialized sports teams, in the United States and in Canada that do. Who should be able to help in that cause. Ricardo?
Yeah, I don't have too much to add there. Andy covered it. The question is pretty broad, and it depends on the channel as well. Like, if, in terms of for recommendations for partners, there's too many. I probably wouldn't want to get down in that field, but in terms of the partnership side of thing, that's obviously Randy was talking about, kind of some of that A/B testing. But when we looked at it in the partnership side, that's something for us. We're really trying to get behind, because partnerships in the past is actually very hard to measure ROI. They would purchase a logo on the field. Logo would be viewed on the television.
Correct.
I guess that's a metric, but how do you what's the return on investment? So
exactly.
So if there's anything that I would say is, just any general analytics or data and analytics that you can do out of all of these initiatives will come back and give you some concrete reporting. What then you can create benchmarks, and then you can see which ones are, like what Indy was saying. Did the spend match, the return? And it depends on the channel. Like, I can't really say go to this company for all of it, because it'll, whether it's web or social, or is it mobile,
Correct. Exactly.
I want to add, if you may, right? So
sure.
We recently did some social augmented reality filters on Facebook and Instagram for one of our clients, and again, this is it's kind of a new thing on Facebook and Instagram itself, right? They're trying to kind of offer this as part of the platform, and sports organizations or any brand can use it to engage the fans, right? Interestingly, what we saw was again, we did not define any metrics on the success, but what we saw was a clear 20% growth in the followers for them, right? They were able to identify new fans and able to kind of add them to follow their social page. And the different from a content perspective to this activation is, any content you post, right, you don't get that level of engagement, because before you realize the next content comes in, and it's gonna, the feed gets it gets noisy for any user, right? But we have seen a very high, it spiked, and it's maintaining the plateau, that engagement day after day, and it increasing, and we are almost close to pretty much kind of like more than 60-70% of their overall following, right? So we have seen engagement to those high numbers. So again, the activations also changes to Ricardo's points, and so you cannot have a one-size-fits-all measurement across all channels. So social, maybe your followers or your reach, that what helps, because you can go and talk to your brand saying that, okay, this is my reach in social, right? So
Correct.
That was an interesting use case I want to share on the social AR side.
Excellent. Cool. So I think we are pretty much on time in terms of ending it. But yeah, before we kind of close in, there's just one question which can also be used as a closing remark, I believe. This was asked during the registration for this webinar, and I think probably I'll ask each of you to use this as your closing remark. So, will digital fan experience survive post-pandemic? There's something which is interesting. Obviously, it has been there before the pandemic, but how will people view this post the pandemic? Maybe you can just close in with this answer. I think Arvind, you can go first.
Sure. Yes, it will survive. There's no doubt about it. Even before the pandemic, we saw a pretty nice traction, like building up from the digital aspect of the things that sports organization they do, right? So whether it was pandemic basically like fast tracked that in my opinion, right? It's definitely going to be there in post pandemic. That will be the way forward from our standpoint, right? There will be more and more digital stuff that the sports organizations will start prioritizing, right? Will start exploring, just like any other industry, right? Where you see like digital being the prominence, right? So we will be like heading towards that path from a sports and entertainment standpoint.
Interesting. Ricardo?
Yeah, just continuing that path from Aravind. It's going to survive, and a lot of New innovation and also a lot of energy has gone in to try to overcome the challenges of COVID, right? We didn't have fans in the stands, so this digital and social, every kind of way that we connect with our fans was all those buttons and levers were pressed. So it's not going to die. We're actually learning more, and it's given us more tools and to monetize or to reach out to our fans later on. It like Arvind said, it's going to increase. Like one of the ways that we're looking at now is, how could we keep our partnership dollars in a time when we couldn't reach our fans physically, right? So we reached out to all of our digital and collect more data, using whether it was mobile activation similar to the Finiscus products, just in general, just to keep some sort of level of engagement. And the pandemic's not going to go away in a snap of fingers, so we're going to have a tail off where some fans are going to still stick with the digital only interactions until they feel safe to come back to the stands. So that's how I see it.
Agreed. Indy?
I obviously agree, with Arvind and Ricardo on this. I think in some ways, if you step back and think about sports, sports. Essentially, all sports is two or more people, battling their skills, watched by a bunch of people watching them battle their skills, right? I mean, that's essentially what sports is, or has been that. And COVID is right in the center of that, and just doesn't want physical connections to happen, right?
Yep.
In that backdrop, the idea of creating a fan experience through digital only gains prominence, right? Because even though it's a small percentage of overall fans of a league that go to a physical stand.
Yep.
Now everyone is that you're trying to sort of reach them digitally and have some form of same dopamine hit through digital, right? So with that background, like the Riders and all other teams right across sports are looking to create more digital real estate that they want to sort of sell, to sponsors, and also serve to create fan experiences, right? That keep them engaged in various ways without stepping on privacy, without over cluttering, but engaging them in a way in which our the collective revenue stay as well as the experiences stay. So post-pandemic, digital fan experience is only going to grow.
All right, Satish, your closing thoughts.
So I always believe that digital was always there, right? I think what the sports organizations were, in my opinion, didn't prioritize that from a perspective, because there have been studies which said that the modern fans are more younger and their attention span is very lower. And for example, there was a study which said that average age of a MLB baseball fan was 50 plus. Right, so they're pretty much kind of not kind of catering to the younger audience. Right? This was before COVID too, right? So the modern fans, the Gen Zs and the millennial fans are always digital, right? So and majority of them don't even go to the stadium to watch games and all. So there was some priorities for sports organizations getting to kind of get into digital. I guess like all COVID has done is to really given that shock that hey, yep, you have to really prioritize it. And some of the clients that we talk with, digital was like maybe number 20 or 30 on their budget list. Now it's slowly moving to the top 5, top 10, which is a good sign for as a sports tech company like us, and as well as people in digital, right? And who are there. And I was speaking with somebody on Monday, and they were saying that the sports teams are trying to create an innovation group within themselves. They are all realizing that, okay, we have to do that. They are carving out an innovation group, and they are looking for working with other partners to see that, okay, how do we start this? So it's a good investment sports organizations are moving towards. and it's going to give great returns in the end. Obviously, you cannot get returns immediately, but again, digital is going to be part of their overall sports business, right? So we are going to see a transition like that happen.
Absolutely agree. And I think the critical aspect which you pointed out was the return on investment is not always immediate. It has to kind of, go through a life cycle, which people have to be patient with as well. Yeah, because, if you've not done digital before, and if you suddenly do it, you can't expect people to just jump on you, right? You have to give it time to kind of, mature and, get your fans to kind of get hooked to your platform and stuff. All right, thank you guys. I think this hour passed on as usual, pretty quickly. So with so many questions coming in from the audiences as well, and appreciate all your questions, the audience part. So, and thank you to all the panelists. I think this was another amazing discussion. Thank you, Indy. Thank you, Ricardo, for joining us today. And this was also shared live on YouTube. So we will also share, whoever could not attend live, we will share the link on our LinkedIn and our other social media handles as well. So thank you guys. Have a great rest of the day, and good night to people in the rest of the world.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.